This is Lisa from Mobile Tech Review, and today we're going to look at the Sony Xperia Tablet Z. This is Sony's latest and greatest tablet for 2013, running Android. And what's so great about it? Well, it's remarkably thin. Look at this, 0.27 inches thick. That is thinner than a pencil. That's 6.9 millimeters. It weighs just slightly over a pound. It is wildly light. If you felt like holding a tablet was, well, you know, kind of a pain, not really comfortable, this guy is just, yeah, you're not going to build any muscles holding this. Lovely full HD display, quad-core CPU inside, and more features than you can imagine, and we're going to look at it now. So this is Sony's latest tablet, the Xperia Tablet Z. It goes with the Z smartphone there for the naming and the marketing branding here. 10.1-inch full HD display, Sony's Mobile Bravia 2 engine involved here, but unlike the Xperia Z smartphone, viewing angles are much better on this guy. Sure, we're going to catch some glare here, but we don't have that kind of whiting out of the blacks going on. Really, really nice display. Also 10.1 inches. Sony's previous tablets have been 9.4 inches. They were trying to be a little bit smaller than everybody else. Well, they've given up on that, and that's fine with me. 10.1 is a perfectly nice size. Pretty good sized bezel around here, as you can see. Well, that gives you a place to hold the tablet, and really rigid frame, even though this thing is psycho thin. I mean, wow, so thin. I'm just still amazed at it. I'm twisting on it, nothing happens. I can't not twist this frame whatsoever. It's available in black in the 16 gig model, which is $499 in the US for the Wi-Fi model. There are no 3G models in the US. Overseas, you probably can get them, but not here. And if you get the 32 gig model, you have your choice of white or black. In either case, it's a matte finish. And this is what the back looks like. I personally think I like the black a little bit better, but hey, that's why they give us a choice. Slightly, almost like a pearlescent finish, depends on the lighting, as how much you can see that on the white model. Certainly clean, certainly modern, goes with your kitchen pretty nicely. And here's our 8.1 megapixel camera here. It says Sony's Exmor R sensor on it. Takes pretty nice photos. We'll talk about that in a bit. There's a front-facing camera as well, centered right here, so that's great. We don't have to have a video conference with our ear being the main thing that shows. I always like it when it's in the middle. And everything else is covered under rubber ports on the side. Now, why is that? Because, again, like the Xperia Z smartphone, this guy is dust resistant and water resistant. Sony says you can keep this under as much as 3 feet of water for up to 30 minutes. So I did, in fact, wash it in the kitchen sink. You have to make sure all your little port doors are closed, and, well, it's obviously fine. So for you extremely tidy people, you people who work outdoors, those of you who want to take it to the beach and worry about a little bit of splashing, hey, cool, it's for you. So we take a look at those ports right here. We've got right there a little door. If we pop that open, you can see right here that is our micro USB port. This supports USB host as well with Sony's optional USB host on-the-go adapter cable, which I happen to have, so I've used that, and we'll talk about that also a bit later. We've got stereo speakers on the bottom, little speaker right there. And one down on this end as well, right here. And Sony's tablets, much like their notebook computers, have been surprisingly quiet. You'd think a company that makes a whole lot of nice stereo and AV gear would have a pretty rockin' kind of audio experience. So far, this guy is the loudest that we have heard on a Sony tablet. It's finally not too meek and quiet to even listen to in your own living room. Decent sounding speakers and pretty good placement, because usually you're holding your hands on the side, but notice the speaker does port out on the side as well. So you've got much better chance of not blocking your audio from any given side since it's doing that. That's a pretty neat design right there. This bigger door over here is labeled as micro SD. Now I think this is where the SIM card slot would also go for those of you who have an overseas version that has that. And there's a little lip that you grab the door by right there, and it makes it a lot easier to open. So there's our micro SD card slot, compatible with SDXC high capacity cards. And there's a blank slot, which I assume would be the SIM card slot in overseas models. On the top edge here, we have the consumer IR window. This is for your AV remote control gear. Something that Sony really started with Android products on their tablets quite some time ago. And now we're seeing others jump into the game, notably Samsung and HTC on their HTC One smartphone. But we've got it right here, and it comes with a very complete AV remote control application. This side, this is our little power button. Kind of matches the PS Vita and also the Xperia phones that have come out recently. And another door right here is for a 3.5 millimeter headphone jack. Volume controls are right here. There's a little LED for notifications, multicolored, different colors for different things. And this is what I assume would be the cradle mount for the optional cradle. So the Xperia Tablet Z certainly shares a lot of design DNA and the CPU with the Sony Xperia Z smartphone right here, 5-inch full HD smartphone. Similar looking, very cut off rectangular design. And you know, this phone looked thin to me until I saw the Tablet Z, because relatively speaking, you expect the tablet to be a little chunkier, a little thicker. And in this case, look at that. That's something. Put them flat on the table. And now we've got them flat on the table. You can see that the phone is actually a little bit thicker. Pretty wild. And here for a little comparison, we have it with our Nexus 10 Android tablet right here, both 10.1 inch. And you can see that the Sony is a little bit longer or wider across right there. Much lighter though, about 5 ounces lighter than the Nexus, and you can really feel it. And also a little bit thinner than the Nexus too. The Nexus doesn't look like the most svelte device, but it actually is fairly thin. So that's pretty impressive right there, but the Sony is still a little bit thinner than it, and obviously lighter. Now our Nexus 10 has an even higher resolution, crazy resolution display, but other than that you're looking at fairly comparable products. The tablet weighs 1.09 pounds, and again it is 0.27 millimeters thick, which is right now the thinnest tablet on the planet. For those of you who've had maybe an iPad with Retina display and have found that kind of heavy, this seems like nothing. It's trivial. In fact, this is about the same weight as my iPad mini with a fairly minimal case on it. So very easy to hold for long periods of time, which can make it good for reading also. One thing to note is it's an extremely rectangular design, isn't it? So when you're reading up and down, holding this in portrait mode, it might seem a little bit weird at first because it is so long across here, or it would be tall if you're holding it like that. You get the idea. You can see our home screen functions in both ways. But the full HD display, really nice for reading on, and the weight, just great. The tablet is running Android Jelly Bean 4.1.2, which is what we see on a lot of tablets and smartphones coming out right now. I think some manufacturers are avoiding latest, greatest 4.2.2 because it is a little bit buggier, but I'm sure we'll see it eventually on this tablet. Sony has done some light customization here, not too much. You can see we've got our indicator up here for our 5 home screens. They have not loaded too many widgets on. There's a weather widget over here, a little note-taking application. Tap that and you can go into, well, there it is, your full-size note-taking interface. This does not have a digital pen, so you're going to be taking notes using the on-screen keyboard or your finger, by the way. And you can see right here, they've been doing this for a while, and this kind of goes back to the honeycomb days. We have our apps symbol over here, and you just tap on that to get to your app drawer. A little translucent thing, nice and quick, indicator as to how many screens you have. And you can see up here we have alphabetical, or you can do it by most recent, recently installed, your own order if you want to order those up, tidy up yourself. And if you want to get to all of your settings, well, first you've got a lot of notifications down here in this corner, typical of Android. And we've got our wireless indicator, which doesn't really seem to keep up very well with what the wireless reception actually is. I notice it tends to take longer to update as opposed to actually looking at settings and see where your wireless reception's at. We've got the battery indicator right here with percentage. You can turn the percentage on and off. This also has a stamina mode. It can turn off the wireless radios when the device is sleeping to save power. And if we tap here on the time, we have our notifications, and we can clear those guys, and we can get to all settings by going right here. And here we have what look like typically your normal Android settings over here. We've got a couple of customizations though. Here we have our stamina mode, our low battery mode options for Xperia. Notice we have DualShock Wireless 3 controller. This is pretty cool. Take your DualShock Wireless 3 controller that comes with your PlayStation 3. Plug in that USB cable with the optional USB host adapter, not included in the box, and you can pair these guys up. It's pretty much the same process as if you had a PlayStation 3. You connect it via the USB cable at first, they make good friends with each other, and then they're connected via Bluetooth. And then it has actually information also on how to get the controller to pair back up with your PlayStation 3, which is, you know, again, is just plug in the cable, hit the PlayStation button, and you're done. So finally, you can use the PlayStation 3 controller without actually having to root your tablet, which is pretty cool. And for those of you who are not sure what I mean, right here we have our PlayStation DualShock 3 controller. And here we have the cable that comes with. And on the end I have attached that Sony USB host adapter that they sell in Sony style stores, other stores right there. So you can actually use this guy to attach things like flash drives and all that. Now, previous Sony tablets have had USB host as well. The nice thing is now all your media actually shows up from removable stuff, whether it's a card or a flash drive, in associated multimedia applications. So you don't have to go hunting for those videos or those music files. They'll just show up in your music and video players. Good stuff there. Other settings of interest, we have the Sony Entertainment Network option over here because there's a whole bunch of Sony stuff on here, including PlayStation mobile gaming, so you can set up your account with that. And developer options are right there and visible for you more technical types. It's not hidden. You don't have to press on the build number 17 times just to get it to show up or anything like that. And for our storage, well, we have lots of stuff installed on here, but you can see this is the 32 gig model, and we start out with about 25.68 gigs available to us, and I've installed lots of games and other things on there. We have an SD card installed and support for USB mass storage right there. So, good stuff. Inside, we have pretty good specs. We have a quad-core Qualcomm Snapdragon S4 Pro CPU running at 1.5 gigahertz. It's not the Qualcomm Snapdragon 600 we've seen in the Samsung Galaxy S4 and HTC One smartphones, but it's pretty darn fast CPU and it benchmarks very well, and I'll tell you all those numbers in a minute. And honestly, you know, Android, because there's so many models to differentiate, they become a little bit like PCs, where feeds and speeds are one of the big competitors, and we're just going so fast with CPU upgrades that you don't have to worry about it that much. As long as you've got something really pretty darn fast in there, you're good. This is really pretty darn fast. It's one of the faster tablets on the market. There will always be something faster coming. Don't worry about it. All the games play just fine on this CPU and a variety of other top-notch CPUs, and the games are typically the most demanding. It has 2 gigs of RAM inside. It's available with 16 or 32 gigs of storage. In the United States, 16 gigs will cost you $4.99, 32 gigs will cost you $5.99. And that's typical Sony launch prices. Knowing them, you know, 5 months down the road, it'll probably come down by $100 or so. And it's a little bit on the pricey end, I think, because there's so much price pressure on Android tablets. I'm not saying that this product isn't worth it. It certainly has a lot of great features, but it's hard right now because everybody's trying to do a race to the bottom with pricing. That said, it is priced competitively with the Nexus 10, so not so bad there. And also, obviously, with the iPad with Retina display. The tablet has NFC, that I already mentioned, it has that consumer IR remote. We have dual band Wi-Fi, Bluetooth 4.0, a GPS with GLONASS, works perfectly well on this as well. Front-facing camera for video chat, well, you can also take selfies if you want, and we've got that 8.1 megapixel rear camera, which is pretty decent camera. Let's take a look at that. So here we have one big viewfinder, and right now it's taking a look at the Sony Xperia Z phone, which is a big reflective mass, a little bit hard for it to focus on. Not a whole lot of controls right here. Here's our video recording button, there's our camera button. We can switch our cameras right here. We have quick access to gallery. Some tools, settings right here. And the reason there aren't that many settings is because you see this little right here, this little icon? This is Intelligent Auto Mode, which you see on Sony's NEX cameras and also on the Xperia Z and ZL smartphones. So right now it's taking care of most of the settings for you, so it's not showing you the full gamut of things that are available. But you can see we have normal, we have the video camera, burst mode, panorama mode, effects, all sorts of stuff. So let's just switch to normal so you can see. Now we got our HDR option, EV exposure, and a lot more stuff is available here for those of you who like to take pictures using your own settings. Intelligent Auto usually does a good job. I have to say, the one thing I found a little disappointing so far is HDR mode. It really doesn't do as much as it could to bring out a dark subject against a white background. Firmware can certainly fix that. It's fast enough to take a picture. You can do tap to focus. You can actually set it so that when you tap, it also takes the picture. I prefer to not have it that way. And it can shoot 1080p video. So nice stuff. As tablet cameras go, this actually takes some nice pictures. Again, other than the HDR issue. Here's a picture we took outdoors under partly cloudy skies of obviously of a rose, a flower, and lots of nice detail there, pretty natural looking. Colors are fairly accurate. Didn't bloom on the pinks too much, nice. Again, did a good job there. Did not white out on the rocks. The reds here are quite detailed. That's nice. Usually you see a lot of red blooming on digital cameras. Not so much here. And here you can see this area by the fence is a bit too dark, and that's what I mean about I'd like them to fix the exposure a little bit and do a little bit better job there, that kind of thing. And you can see a video that we shot. This does have image stabilization, which I tested out here. Recording volume is not super duper loud, but
video with the Sony Xperia Tablet Z. Not a very wide angle lens. Now I'm going to walk to test image stabilization. I'll try not to fall in the pool.
so there you have a 1080p video recorded with the camera. Not bad for a tablet, I have to say. And given how light this is, you might be tempted to actually whip it out and use it for photography and videoing. In terms of applications, I've put obviously a lot of benchmark applications on here and some games. Chrome is the included browser. The old WebKit browser is not to be found. That means no Adobe Flash preloaded either. I did install both browser and I sideloaded Adobe Flash, and that worked just fine on here. You've got the full suite of Google applications on here, the YouTube player, Gmail, email application, Google Plus, the new Google settings over here so you can control what everything is about. Google Maps is on here, and navigation as well. Then you're probably going to want a Wi-Fi hotspot or use your smartphone's hotspot feature if you're going to be navigating on the go, or you could pre-download your maps too. We have an FM radio over here, which has a kind of soothing visualizer. It actually has quite good reception. I was impressed with it. Crackle is preloaded. That's Sony's thing for streaming video. It works fine on this. Generally, Crackle works better on Sony products than on other brand products. Behaves well, not flaky. We've got our PlayStation mobile gaming over here, which is pretty neat to have, though the selection of games I saw wasn't all that exciting compared to what's on the Android market. We've got Sony's own video player, and we've got their Walkman music application, as well as the standard Google Play applications for playing your multimedia files and Google Play books as well. Sony also preloads their music and video unlimited applications for those of you who are customers of those services. Netflix is preloaded as well. They don't mind if you use other people's streaming media services, clearly. We've got Track ID on here, so it can ID your music track. Xperia Link, so you can get friendly with your Xperia smartphone, basically to use it as a mobile hotspot more easily in case you find that a daunting task. Their social life application for Twitter and Facebook. I have tended to avoid that for as long as Sony Xperia tablets have been around. It's not that the UI is bad, but it's always either been a battery hog or a little bit quacky. So I'm still testing that now to see how it runs on this tablet. And we've got their AV remote control right here, and there's a quick launcher down here, which is nice. So no matter what you're doing, you can get to it quickly. And it's the same UI we've seen on previous Xperia tablets. So every device has its icon. You can power them independently and say we want to actually control the device. Really, lots and lots of options right there. Pretty much replicates everything that you've got on the remote. That's nice, and it supports swiping up and down to change the volume and sideways to change the channels. Works pretty well. Now, Sony's supposed to offer a TV sideshow application for those of you who want to also get information on programming that's available. There are actually quite a few apps in the Android Play Store that give you that same functionality, but funny thing is, when I tried to download it from Google Play, it said it wasn't compatible. Go figure. I'm sure Sony will fix that soon. As we'd expect for something with a fairly powerful CPU inside, it has a responsive enough web browser here. Nice with the full HD display. Text is very sharp and easy on the eyes. It's likewise, again, like I said, really nice for reading ebooks, but great companion for content consumption right there, just because of the sharpness and the clarity of the display. It's a pretty bright display, not wildly, insanely bright like some of the Asus tablets that we've seen, but it's certainly bright enough for even a bright room. One thing I don't like about it is the glare. This is a pretty darn glary display. I'm sure Sony's going to have a field day selling matte screen protectors for this just to cut back on the glare. But other than that, works pretty well. We can check out a streaming YouTube video to see how it plays. And we'll look at our Optimus G Pro video review. By Sony standards, that's pretty loud right there. This is Lisa from Mobile Bravia, and today we're going to look at the LG Optimus G Pro on AT&T. A lot of words to say right there, but suffice to say, this is their big new phone on AT&T. Literally, it's a 5.5. Plays fine, works fine, and you can see we're just a little bit over 50% volume there. It's pretty darn loud and not too harsh and shrill for a tablet. Now, of course, you're going to get the best sound if you plug in some external speakers, a good set of headphones, or even a Bluetooth speaker. And right here, even though we're in the web browser, you see we have quick access to our AV remote control, and there's another little icon right there, and that's your quick launcher bar. And not unlike what Samsung and LG have done with their little quick launch bars, you can actually customize this and add different applications, but you can launch little floating applications. So I just launched the note application right there to take a quick note. So that's kind of a handy feature. And if you want to add more, you can see you can turn your widgets into little apps, which is interesting, pop-up apps right here. And you can get more small apps, they call it, from the Play Store. And these are the apps that are supported right here. So it's not everything on your tablet. It's just the ones that are supported. But nonetheless, it's pretty neat. And there's a good set of core applications here. And it's nice to see that there are some others available as well. This is Sony's Walkman application here. Always a pleasure to use it. They pretty much know what they're doing when it comes to music players. You can use Google Play if you want to as well, but nice UI right here. Pretty easy to use, and it plays in the background, and there's a widget for this too, so nice stuff. Likewise, you've got a couple different ways to play videos right here. We'll look at Sony's own, and we'll pick a trailer. Full 1080p trailer right here, MPEG 4.
American team hasn't won in the last 15 years. I want you to coach my crew. Train 12 hours a day, every day. Do this.
More than capable of playing full HD 1080p video, and for those of you who want to plug this into your TV using HDMI, it does support MHL out through the micro USB port. Of course, it also supports Sony's throw feature, which sometimes works, sometimes is mystifying, and what that means is basically it's using DLNA, and you take a piece of media and you throw it the visual representation of your TV if you want to play that on the TV. So it's DLNA Sony style. In terms of synthetic benchmarks, the tablet did very well. It's one of the fastest tablets on the market. For Quadrant, it scored 7450. On Tutu, you can see right here, 20,517. On Geekbench 2, it scored 1890. GL Benchmark 2.7, the Egypt 2.5 HD test, 32 frames per second on screen and 31 off screen. That's quite good. SunSpider was 1501 using the built-in Chrome web browser. Now the Chrome web browser tends to score a little bit lower than the old WebKit web browser, so keep that in mind. For comparison's sake, that's about the same quadrant speed as the Samsung Galaxy Note 8 with the quad-core Exynos CPU. It's actually a little bit better. The Samsung Galaxy Note 8 scored 7054 versus this guy scoring 7450. When comparing it to the Nexus 10, that scored 4959 on Quadrant, so a lot faster for that test. On Tutu, the Nexus 10 scored 13,658 versus that 20,517. But the Nexus 10 does pull ahead with faster GL benchmark numbers. Some of the fastest we've seen, in fact, around 50 frames per second for on-screen tests, which is really good. And a little bit higher Geekbench number too, 2,500 versus 1,890. So there you have it. If you're wondering how this stands up in terms of performance with some of the fastest tablets on the market, it holds its own very well. Now we're going to test out gaming. First we're going to use Dead Trigger because shooters are usually pretty good use for this controller, and that's what I'm going to use, wireless. Look, Mom, no wires. It's all connected via Bluetooth right here. So here I am walking along using the left joystick, and I'm going to aim. You know, honestly, this is a game that plays just fine with the touchscreen, but it's just a good example to show you. It's great when you're playing something like GTA 3. So now we've destroyed our zombies. You can see it looks just fine, it plays just fine. The controller works nicely. You could also use other controllers if you want, USB-based ones, if you have the little USB adapter. And GameStop's Bluetooth controller also works. And now for something a little bit less blatantly violent, we have Bard's Tale here, which is a pretty demanding game. And this is the high-res version that's about 3.6 gigs to download. So you've got all the good stuff right here.
Come to me.
On the move!
And it's playing just fine. Let's see if we can find our way into a little bit of trouble here, maybe. Nobody wants to talk to me? Oh well. Ah, the friendly people in Bardstown. As you can see, it plays absolutely just great. Looks nice. Nice detail here. Full HD display. Nice vibrant colors. Very, very enjoyable. So how about battery life? Full HD display, quad-core CPU. Those are pretty power hungry. Thin design. There's room for a 6,000 milliamp battery in here. That's a bit smaller than some of the competitors like the Nexus 10. I know people have been worried about the battery life. And you know what? So far, I haven't even used Stamina Mode to power down the wireless radios overnight. Battery life has been quite good on this. I would say so far we're averaging about 7.5 hours of streaming video playback. That's quite good. That's with the brightness set to 50%. Now this guy can get wildly bright, but I don't feel like I need it. 50% is actually pretty comfortable. If you do jack the brightness up to the maximum, you will see battery life degrade quicker. So keep that in mind. If you really want to run your tablet bright, then battery life might not be so good for this. But at 50%, we're using auto brightness, which is actually quite good. It's not like Samsung where it makes everything too dim or twitches a lot. It's kind of like the HTC One. Everything is nice and bright and it's not overly responsive. Well, if you do that, then you should be able to get 8 or 10 hours use out of the tablet. So that's not bad, especially given how skinny it is. So that's the Sony Xperia Tablet Z. It's available, just starting to be available now at Sony style stores. Maybe a couple of other retailers will have it. Your choice of black or white, depending on the capacity that you choose. As ever, thin, light. This is Sony doing what they do best, to be honest. Just making something as thin and light as possible with a lot of nice cutting-edge features and a good display. I'm Lisa from Mobile Tech Review. Visit our website for the full review of the Xperia Tablet Z, and don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel.